Hello, everybody. Thank you for tuning in to the Liberty Report. With me today is Daniel McAdams, the co-host. Daniel, nice to see you.
Good morning, Dr. Paul.
Good. Let's talk about foreign policy today. It still exists. There is a policy out there. Some days it's so messy you don't know what the policy is, especially now that we're in the interim between two administrations and we're trying to figure out, will there be a change? Will it be positive? But lo and behold, our current president has made a major change. And I think it was the Washington Post that announced this major change, 180-degree turn on dealing with the radicals, the Islamists who are trying to take over Aleppo or defend Aleppo and that area, and they're fighting. And, of course, we've been allies. All of a sudden, our government and Obama says that we're no longer going to support him. Now, the one thing that strikes me about this is a dramatic change, and it looks like they're taking away support. Don't you think there's still going to be a few American people saying, what are you talking about? Were we supporting these guys? But that's really what was going on there, wasn't it?
I think it's become so obvious to Americans that the U.S. is actually really a CIA project, and it's been ongoing for at least 5 years, probably longer, to destabilize and overthrow Assad. And it's become more and more obvious, especially the last few months, that the allies the U.S., the CIA was using in Syria really were, if not al-Qaeda, then certainly close affiliates with al-Qaeda. And that's what came out when the U.S. kept promising to separate its moderates from al-Qaeda and was unable to do so. So, yes, this is a shift that apparently the administration will start targeting rather than supporting al-Qaeda in Syria.
Well, I think it's a reflection of how we go to war, because obviously we don't recall them taking it to the Congress and getting a declaration of war. And if that were the case, let's say that Assad was a threat to America, we've changed our mind, we're not going to do it. And, of course, the president, in this day and age, can do that. But lo and behold, the policies changed, and now, the position that we've held is it had to go. And we were really, even though talking with in a way, but also aggravated with the Russians, because the Russians were defending an ally of theirs, and they were invited in there to help them. So we were at odds, and yet we pretended we were against, al-Qaeda, Nusra, and Russia said too, but why don't we get together and fight them? But it looks like we are maybe going to be together. This might mean that Russia's going to walk away with at least a diplomatic victory on this.
Yeah, I think so. And, what the Post speculated, actually wasn't even speculation, I think they out and out said it, was that this change is the result of the election of Trump last week, this shift. You'd mentioned actually just a minute before we started the show today, you wonder if maybe President Obama is a bit relieved that Trump was elected and that he can shift his policy away.
Well, yes. And, looking into a person's mind and trying to understand motivations, it's really impossible. That's why I hate this position of hate crimes. Motivations make a difference on what your penalty is going to be. Looking into somebody's mind and knowing what their motivations are. I've always suspected that, but I've never naively suspected or believed that Obama was not George Bush. George Bush obviously had a more aggressive foreign policy. A lot more Americans died and all these things. But I was always surprised that when he went against this, and certainly he was very aggressive in 2011 when he said Assad must go. This was a big issue. And it might be, just the current circumstances, the end of a term, and maybe he truly would like to go out without saying, he's not going to win that war. Assad is not going to leave before he leaves. So maybe he wants to do something he half believes in, and maybe he thinks he can accomplish this and steal some of the credit from Trump. Who knows what the motivations are, but I don't think it was real hard for him to do this. But the big question then is, where's the deep state on this? Where's the military-industrial complex? Where's the CIA? I would think that there's a lot of people not all that happy with taking a different stand. What about Saudi Arabia, our close allies? Even Israel might not think this is a good idea because they want Assad to go. What about, then the mixed bag about Iran? Trump speaks harshly about Iran, but this looks like Iran's going to be on the winning side of this thing too, because they're sort of with Russia.
Yeah, and you do wonder what the motivation is for the shift in policy. What will be the outcome of the shift in policy, and does Trump get credit for it? He has said, I think yesterday, he said, "Look, I take an opposite view of what's going on in Syria. I don't want to do this regime change. I'm more interested in fighting ISIS." If that's the case, but then if what you said about Obama is true, then his heart really isn't in it. Then it really all comes down to his advisors, and so that makes a big difference. The deep state.
Yeah, conditions were quite a bit different when I was a young person. But remember the days of World War II. There were enemies out there, and the people knew about it, and there was a declaration, and they knew about victory. And it was just, over a little over 3.5 years. Just think of what was accomplished. Here we are in these places for 15 years or so, and nothing seems to, there's no ending, because there's a incomplete beginning. They don't know what they're there for, and we're not following the rules. But that's not just here. There's other places that are still hot spots. You take, for instance, in Afghanistan, over the weekend, four Americans killed?
Inside the Bagram Air Base, which I think is the first time they've had a suicide bomber inside what's supposedly a safe area. And this is on the heels of another attack, just a couple of weeks ago, in Kunduz, where several Americans were killed as well.
Yeah, and there's these are usually CIA operations, and that's why I have no soft spot in my heart for the CIA. I think it's contradictory to living in a free society, because I think that they can, if they decide to, get rid of presidents, and some people believe they've already done those kind of things, and therefore I have no sympathy for them, but they're very powerful, and they're a government unto themselves. I was in Congress. I tried to keep up. I tried to look at their budget and go to the secret room, and you really don't know, but it's impossible for the size and scope for a president to know everything about what the CIA is doing, because the president knows he's in charge of the Pentagon. He's the commander-in-chief of our military. So even if it's not very clear and the Congress acquiesces and they give the money, to go into Syria, that's the Pentagon. But then you have the CIA over here, and a lot of that goes on, and their policies aren't necessarily the same. That there was one article there about what was going on in Jordan, and it was very confusing. Who did what and whose fault was it? And was it terrorism? It was a single person shooting somebody, or lack of security? They went down this list. They never said, well, maybe it was blowback. They never mentioned that. But since there was an argument on where to place the blame, they said, let's get the FBI in here to investigate. So we're going to pick up our FBI and send them over to Jordan to sort out an argument about whether it's the Jordanians, the terrorists, the FBI, the CIA or Pentagon position, or what's going on there. But I thought that was rather ironic use of the FBI.
Yeah, and this is yet another shooting. It was in Jordan a couple of days ago. I think, actually, it was earlier this month. But they said it was just a mistaken identity, what have you. But it turns out now it was 3 CIA officers, most likely involved in training these jihadists who went into Syria. So it's a good question.
And just think how much activity goes on that people don't know about. And I just wonder how many people were well aware of us supporting the radicals and the al-Qaeda group that was actually, we were, because we thought that'd help us overthrow Assad. Now, you suggested to me that, well, American people are waking up, and they probably do know that, but who knows where we stand on that. But if they are, and they see Donald Trump coming in with a firmer hand and a stronger nationalist, maybe he did benefit from that. But I don't think we're quite, this should prove, how horrible our foreign policy is, and that we should abandon this. All the failures of the 15 to 25 years even. But I think, unfortunately, that policy is going to continue, because I do believe the powerful forces in the deep state have influence. Because if on the surface, draining the swamp in Washington isn't necessarily the whole thing, maybe the controllers are in some cubbyhole in New York City someplace, or who knows where, maybe in London or whatnot. That people have a lot of controls financially, and the elite are very world-oriented. And then you have people who aren't necessarily established elite, but you have guys like Soros. Look how much mischief he can cause, and look at what he is doing, in our country today, and even the violence that is occurring now since this election.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think in terms of the Syria policy, several times it was almost comical if it wasn't so tragic. You had CIA troops actually fighting with Pentagon troops, proxy forces in Syria. So the absurdity of it. But the question that I would have now, after 5 years of the U.S. government using jihadists to overthrow Assad, and now if there is this shift where they've backed off, what do you say to a country that you've been trying to destroy for 5 years? The place is a complete wasteland. What do you say? Sorry, and walk away? It's.
Well, the people who do it, often think about this in economic terms. If somebody spent 30 years of their life proving the sanctity and the miraculous management of the economy by manipulating fiat money, and then finally usher in an age of depression like we're in now, and it gets a lot worse, but the feds maintain being in charge of the money. What if, deep down in their heart, I say, what? I think we were wrong on this. We think that. What are the odds of them saying that? Zero. Same way with these interventions. Do you ever think that it isn't so much the president sometimes, even like Bush, the people gave us the misinformation, and they sort of make excuses and all. But the people who, the CIA people aren't going to apologize and say that, we misled, we did this. Once in a while you have a good whistleblower come from these organizations. Yeah. That's why whistleblowers should be our heroes, because I think we would be doing a lot less overseas. But just remember the CIA agent that revealed to us about the torture. He ended up in prison.
The only one to go to prison.
Yeah, so that's... That is the big problem, finding out where the real power is. And some people live and die, live calm, family lives, and promote their personal interrelations and love and peace, and try to steer away from all this. And other people, live lives of hate, and they try to get away with it, and some of it is very, very real hate type of thing. But then there's another group of people, and I put them in the area of the elite. And those are the people who feel so enamored with power. Yeah. Power is the most important thing. See, I think of a guy like Adolf Hitler. He probably stashed money away or something. But he was a maniac. He was a psychopath, and he was living for power over people. And there's all sorts of them. Some do it with a smile, and some do it with, the best of instincts. So supposedly, they're always humanitarians. They're always doing what is right. But I think that it is this power, and that is the reason I have come to the conclusion that the CIA. We should not have a CIA. We should not have a policy of telling other people how to live. And that if we had much smaller government, we wouldn't have so many people buying into the government. They say, no, we have to control the people on how they spend their money to influence the government. Well, I don't want them controlling our money if we happen to get a donation. That we want to change our government. We have a right to do that. But they cannot expect anything to change unless people change their minds, and of course that's what we hope we can do.
Yeah, that's our goal.
Yeah. I want to thank everybody for tuning in today to the Liberty Report, and I find some of this in the news just that much more confirmation about the failed foreign policy of interventionism. This week, We have the president changing his tune on Syria, which is not a negative, it's actually a positive, but it makes the point that he should have never declared war against Assad and say Assad had to go. And these killings, minor compared to many others, whether it's in Jordan or Afghanistan, but it shows that it doesn't work. It doesn't work at all to continue to send our CIA in there. And this is not new. The CIA operations started after World War II. And the CIA involvement, it became really, ambitious in the 1950s. And one of the most significant events was, of course, getting rid of the elected leader in Iran. And this is ongoing. It hasn't stopped. It's not going to stop because we can't direct ourselves to a few individuals in Washington. We have to direct ourselves to the people behind the king, behind the administration, where the money is, and how are you going to eliminate this whole thing about the military-industrial complex. Both presidential candidates that were just running, we have to have massive expansion of military money being spent. That is not the road to prosperity and limited government, because if you're going to have these weapons, what are you going to do with them, and why do we have to be the policemen of the world? So a lot of that is right in place, and I think we have a long way to go, but every once in a while we see something that looks like it could be positive, and I certainly think the fact that the president has changed his position and he no longer support Assad has to go, I think is encouraging. I hope that sets the momentum, for the next administration. So we remain reluctantly or carefully optimistic that some good will come out of the election, and that they will look at our side of the picture of non-interventionists, minding our own business, not being the policemen of the world, not being run by the military-industrial complex, not by militarism, not interfering in the elections of other countries. We have enough job to deal with our own elections here at home. So if we did that, I think the odds would be greatly increased that we would achieve peace and prosperity. Certainly, those are our goals. I want to thank everybody for tuning in to the Liberty Report. Please come back soon.